Hello and welcome to today's creature feature at the Assiniboine Park Zoo. My name is Dr. Chris Enrichment and I'm one of the veterinarians here at the zoo. And we're here to talk about the veterinary care that all the animals receive, and in particular, one of my favorite patients, Mocha the llama. Mocha's a really great example of the vet care that we provide to the animals because Mocha was actually born here 24 years ago and she's lived her life here at the zoo in human care. And throughout that time, she's had checkups in order to keep an eye on things. And as she is right now a bit of an elderly llama, she's started to develop a few conditions. And we've been managing those conditions. Mocha is on a number of different medications to keep her comfortable, to keep her as healthy and fit as she can be, given her age and the conditions that she's starting to develop. And that's true of all the animals in the zoo. As a llama, Mocha's natural lifespan runs somewhere around 20 years of age. And right now, Mocha's actually 24 almost. She's a few months shy of 24. So she's right in her golden years. And every year, we've given her physical exams, we've given her vaccinations to keep her healthy. And today, we're having another look, another evaluation, make sure everything's going well for her at this time. Llamas are a really neat animal. Llamas were domesticated in South America between 4,000 and 6,000 years ago, and they come from the mountains. So not all of South America is tropical, so llamas are really well suited for climates like ours in Winnipeg, where we can have cold temperatures because she's right well adapted to cold temperatures. So she's really had a comfortable life here. She is a domestic animal. She's in our Kinsman Discovery Center barn, the domestic animal portion of the zoo. And llamas are one of those species, along with alpacas and guinea pigs, that were domesticated by the indigenous people of South America. And so they've got a great role in human care as a domestic animal. They've been used as pack animals, they've been used for their fleece. They've had a number of purposes over the course of the past 4,000 years as a domestic animal. So, Mocha in particular, one of the challenges she's encountered as she's gotten older has been with her mobility. And one of our animal care professionals brings that concern to the veterinary team, and the zoo actually has 3 veterinarians on hand at the zoo, and we provide care 365 days a year to all of the animals in the zoo along with our animal care professionals. It's really a joint effort where the keepers, those animal care professionals, are doing the day-to-day care of the animals, and then as concerns arise, they bring it to the attention of our veterinary team, and the veterinarians and the veterinary technologists work together in order to identify what's going on and treat it as best we can for that particular animal and that particular circumstance. And so she's a really good example of that as far as managing her conditions as they've developed, and she's doing pretty darn good in her old age.
I have some questions here from the audience that I'll throw out sort of as you guys get ready to do your checkup with Mocha. What is the difference between a llama and an alpaca?
That's a great question. The difference between a llama and alpaca is that they actually were domesticated from different wild animals. So there's a number of different members of the camel family, and so the wild members of the camel family in South America are guanaco and vicuña. So the guanaco was domesticated to form the llama, and the vicuña was domesticated to form the alpaca.
Great. And what would a llama do for fun?
Llamas do a lot of things for fun. They're a herd animal, so they like living with other animals. They like living with other llamas. In some places here in farms in Manitoba right now, you have llamas living with sheep and goats and actually protecting those sheep and goats against dogs or coyotes or things that might want to hurt the sheep and goats. So they're really a social animal. They work well with each other, they work well with people, and they work well with other animals too.
Great. And what kind of sounds would a llama make? Do they make any sounds?
Llamas can make a range of sounds. Everything from cute little grunts to a warbling scream that sounds like something horrible is happening, but it's really just an upset llama. The other thing that llamas do is spit. All members of the camel family, including llamas, including guanacos, they spit in terms of their signaling with one another, and it's communication. It's a very normal behavior for them to communicate with other llamas, or in our case, potentially people. I certainly have been spat on by camels and llamas before, and it's communication. It's the llama saying they're not completely comfortable with what's going on and we should think about stopping it. And that spit, it's not not actually saliva. What it is stomach contents. So it's actually green and chunky and pretty stinky.
We've been learning a lot about enrichment through these creature features, and we have a great question here asking about what kind of enrichment a llama would get.
That's a great question. All of our enrichment is really intended to offer animals opportunities for natural behaviors that they've evolved over thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. So in the case of the llama, those enrichment items might be around food and investigating new food sources or different food sources. It might be around new smells in the environment. It might be around social contact, and it might be around exposing them to new environments. Mocha is an animal. As a domestic animal, she's quite used to having a halter put on her and being walked around. So we can walk Mocha to the other end of the zoo so she can encounter a different environment, different smells. It's really all-encompassing, but it's focusing on offering opportunities for a llama to be a llama.
Great. We have a question here asking, what does their medical exam entail? What's checked? So I'll maybe just let you walk us through that.
Absolutely. Well, the very first part of a medical exam is talking to the animal care professional, which is Carla over here, and discussing the patient at hand. Anytime we approach a case, we have a whole list of possible causes for what might be going on. And we don't want to narrow down onto one particular cause because then we might miss what's actually going on. So really the exam starts by having the conversation, really exploring what's going on with this animal and her circumstances, knowing her age, her sex, and what exactly the particular concern is. And then as we approach an animal like Mocha, what we do is we look at the environment and we look at her. She's quite interactive. She's resting comfortably, but she's got her ears up. She's definitely watching us, seeing what's going on. So her demeanor is quite good. From here, what we would do is watch her breathing, watch how deeply she's breathing, how frequently she's breathing, and really get an idea of how she's doing at rest as far as demeanor, breathing. If we have the opportunity, I would look at any feces in the environment, any poop, any pee, to see that everything appears normal for that animal in that circumstance. So she looks pretty good. She's resting comfortably in a totally normal position for a llama. So I think Carla will go in there first and put a halter on her, and then we'll go in and continue with today's exam.
While we're doing that, while Carla's getting Mocha set up, can you tell us how many llamas we have at the zoo, and do our llamas ever interact with each other?
Sure. Mocha, for most of the time that I've been here at the zoo, most of the past 15 years, Mocha's been the only llama in the zoo. But just recently, we've acquired a few more llamas, and those llamas are going to help keep predators, things like coyotes that live in the park, away from some of our other domestic animals. So there are 3 young llamas that we have acquired, and they'll be new to the zoo this year. They won't necessarily meet Mocha because Mocha's in her golden years, and she's not necessarily at her most social. But they will certainly be llamas that will be present for the years to come, that people can encounter and really meet really cool animals. I might have mentioned it, but Mocha's a personal favorite. So now that Mocha's all haltered, you're not coming in, sweetheart. You. So what we'll do is we'll have a look. And when we do an exam, we be systematic. And we'll start looking in the eyes, we'll look in the nose, we'll look in the mouth, we'll look at mucous membranes, we'll feel for lumps and bumps around the body, we'll make sure everything feels normal, we'll look for parasites, we'll look at the condition of the coat. She's been laying in the straw, so she's a little covered in straw, but her coat's looking quite nice. And then we'll use our stethoscope, we'll listen to her heart, we'll listen to her lungs. Llamas are really cool in that they have a big stomach. It's not quite the 4-chambered stomach that everyone thinks of with a cow, but it's to the same idea. It's a 3-chambered stomach, and it's really meant to digest things that are difficult to digest. Plants and grass and shrubs, which are what llamas eat, are difficult for animals to digest. So they need this great big stomach in order to digest that food. So we'll listen to that and make sure everything's sounding normal there too. Sweetheart.
Okay, Okay, so Dr. Chris is just checking her for those bumps that we talked about a little bit earlier.
We'll feel lymph nodes. We'll feel the sides of her teeth. Sometimes older grazing animals can get sharp edges to their teeth. So we'll just feel the sides of her teeth, make sure everything's nice and smooth as it should be. And run our hands down her coat, feel the muscle underneath, have a look at the skin. Llama's a really thick wool here, so sometimes it can be difficult to actually see the skin. But I'm separating it, I'm looking down at the skin, I'm looking for any signs of parasites. I'm feeling her muscle and her fat. Mocha's in her old age, she's lost a little bit of weight, so we're feeding her extra digestible food, making sure that she stays as healthy and happy as she can be for as long as possible.
We just had a question here about Mocha's age. She was 24, is that right?
That's right. She's 24 and about 2 months.
And what's the typical lifespan of a llama?
It depends on where you ask. Typical lifespan is around 20 years for a llama. So at 24, she's certainly doing very well for herself.
One of our senior citizens.
Exactly.
So how's everything looking so far?
So far, everything's looking quite good. I'm going to have a listen to her heart. And in a big animal like this, her heart sits right here by her elbow. This is her elbow here, her shoulder blade's coming up here. And so her heart's going to sit here, her lung field's going to be here, and then some of her guts are going to be over in this area that I'll listen to also.
How's everything sounding so far?
So far, her heart and lungs sound quite good. We'll have a listen to her intestines and her stomach over here.
So at the zoo here, every single animal, whether it's a llama, a bird, a polar bear, all get personalized vet care from our vet team. So Dr. Chris and his team go and see every single animal here at the zoo.
That's right. Every animal, every day of the year, has keepers looking after them, those animal care professionals, and a vet team providing support as needed. And we divide our team our time as a vet team. We want to spend as much time as possible in the promotion of health, working on healthy nutrition and working on vaccinations and proactive veterinary care. But sometimes accidents happen. Sometimes animals hurt themselves playing, running around. Sometimes older animals develop conditions. And then what we do is we step it up for that particular animal. And for somebody like Mocha, we've obtained blood samples, we've performed ultrasounds. Mocha had an episode a few winters ago where she had a few episodes of a bleeding nose. And we used our endoscope in order to have a look up her nose to see if there's any particular things, causes, infections, or even things like tumors that could be causing recurrent nosebleeds. So she's certainly an animal that exemplifies the amount of care that these animals get in the zoo. So they get physical exams, they get blood work, ultrasounds, endoscopy, really the very highest quality of veterinary care that we can provide. We adapt and we apply to everything from 15-gram frog to a 150-kilo llama.
We have some more great questions about Mocha. What do they eat and how much does Mocha eat in a day?
Mocha gets about 3,000 kilograms, or 3,000 grams of hay. So this is maybe about half in this bucket, about what she would be getting for the whole day. And she also gets 2 different types of pellets, a herbivore pellet and a ruminant pellet. And she also gets carrot and banana so that we can sort of disguise her pills in the food that she likes to eat, and it makes it easy for us to get it into her.
Great. And how fast would a llama move and how fast is Mocha moving these days?
I think I've seen numbers of somewhere around 30 kilometers per hour for a motivated llama or guanaco, but those days are behind Mocha right now. One of the challenges that Mocha's had is she's a little bit stiff and slow, and that is age-related arthritis. And so one of the medications she's on is to keep her comfortable. This is not a condition that we're going to be able to turn around, but what we can do is, what we need to do ethically in order to take away that pain is treat the arthritis. So she gets her daily medication in order to keep her comfortable here at the zoo.
We have a few questions asking if Mocha interacts with any other animals here in the barn. Does she have any zoo buddies?
She would normally live with our 2 donkeys and 3 pygmy goats, but she has had a recent medical issue, so she's just in this stall so that we can sort of keep a closer eye on her, and that sort of helps us get the amount of food that she needs into her as well without any competition within the group.
The donkeys, unfortunately, like llama food too, so having her on her own right now as a temporary measure helps her get the food we want her to get without her buddies competing for it.
We have a question here about how frequently Mocha would get a checkup, and is that different for different kinds of animals? Are different animals checked on more frequently than others, and why would that be?
Well, that's a great question, and it really depends on the particular animal. Just as your dog or cat might get a checkup every year in order to make sure they're happy, healthy, the animals at the zoo do have scheduled checkups. When the animals are on the younger end, we tend to not necessarily do it every year, but as they start approaching their middle to senior years, or if we start diagnosing conditions in that particular animal, we'll keep a real close eye on that. So for somebody like Mocha, she's getting at least annual physical exams. In fact, more frequently now that she's had a number of conditions diagnosed. Something like our geriatric cougar, Max, out in the zoo, we know Max is in kidney failure. And we need to not just do an exam, but we need to look at his blood and we need to look at his urine. And so we're doing that every 3 to 6 months in Max's case. Not every cougar would need every 3 to 6 months to have an exam, but that particular animal with those particular conditions, we need to keep an extra close eye on. So we don't have anything set every animal at a set frequency, but we certainly do tailor it to the individual and their circumstances.
Great. What would be a typical day, or is there a typical day for a zoo vet?
Well, it's typically an awesome day. A typical day is predictably unpredictable. We schedule a number of procedures, routine procedures in a given day, and those might be vaccinations or physical exams or trimming nails or trimming hooves. And then interspersed are addressing conditions as they arise. It might be a call I had at the end of the day yesterday was one of our kangaroos was a little bit bloated. So that's something that requires immediate attention, and so we drop everything and we go have a look at the kangaroo. That's our day. A little bit of the planned and a little bit of the unpredictable.
Great. I have just 2 more questions for you before we wrap up. Does Mocha have a favorite human here?
I think Carla's probably her favorite human.
I've been working with Mocha for the last, I would say, 5 years, particularly in this section. Mocha is an individual that sort of needs to earn your trust. So it took us a while to get to where we are right now with our relationship, but I would like to say that I am able to halter her up whenever she needs to be haltered, and she's pretty willing to participate in that. And if she's not, then we just sort of walk away at that point, and she is able to choose whether she wants to or not. But I would say I'm maybe on one of the top lists right now. She really likes Dr. Chris too. Even though he does poke her sometimes, but
one of the few that still likes the veterinarians.
We might need to cover Mocha's ears for this. We have a couple people asking, do either of you have a favorite animal here at the zoo?
One of my favorites is one of our red pandas who's off display. His name is Zorro. He's had a lot of issues, but he's one of my favorites. And also our miniature horse Princess, who also is in the barnish area, and she's also one of my favorites.
For me, anyone working here, we get asked this question a lot. And my usual answer is I don't have favorites because I genuinely like every animal in the zoo. But Mocha's actually, if you made me pick, probably one of my favorites. Don't tell the polar bears, they get jealous, but it's probably Mocha.
Great.
So that does conclude our creature feature. Thank you all for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure to talk about Mocha and all the things we do as a veterinary team. As a reminder, this coming Friday, we do not have a creature feature, but join us next week on Monday and Wednesday for gray wolves and
Red pandas.
Red pandas. Thanks again for joining us.